This episode brought to you by Baby Elliot, who torpedoed his way into the world over the past week. Everybody's happy and healthy. Now go enjoy this cult story.
Oh, man, I'm going to be so sad when this series ends later this month. Oh, God, I love that song so much. It gets me so hyped up. It is Our Weird World. Welcome to the show. It's the summer of cults. We've been doing cult stories all summer long. If you're just joining us, go back and listen to all the craziness that we've gotten into. This week is another silly story. We are looking at Ruth Norman and the Unarius cult. Let's get into it.
Story time. Story time. Story time? Story time.
Ruth Nields was born on August 18th, 1900 in Indianapolis, but the family soon moved to Pasadena, California, where Ruth grew up. Her father was abusive and actually forced Ruth and her 5 siblings to work rather than focus on school so that, they can give him all the money that they made to do whatever he was going to do with it. Ruth, as a child, worked as a fruit packer and a maid. Like I said, ended up giving most of the money that she earned to her father. What was he doing? I don't know. Maybe he wasn't working. He just being a lazy sack of crap. Anyway, over the next 3 decades, starting in 1918, Ruth got married 3 times, had a daughter that she later lost custody of, and worked a variety of jobs, including as a nanny, a model, and a resort manager. Now, I felt like we had some sympathy for Ruth right there at the beginning, right? Like her dad's abusive, making her work as like a kid, young kid, teenager, whatever the case is. But then she has a kid later in life, which look, I'm not going to be judgy for people who get married 3 times. Like some people, it takes a couple of times to figure out what. Now, the people who marry and get remarried and get remarried to increasingly more abusive people, I don't have sympathy for that. You're just an idiot. But I don't know what Ruth's 3 husbands were like, right? Or at least the first 2. I do have a little judgment to women who lose custody of their kids. Now, granted, there could be a crazy amount of circumstances, but as a woman in America, it's really hard for you to lose a custody battle of a kid. And listen, knowing what we know about her later on, or at least what I know about her, what you will know about her later on, I'm pretty judgy at how terrible of a mother you must have been to lose custody of your kids. Well, in the 1940s, Ruth enrolled at the Church of Religious Science and got super into things like spiritualism and past life regression. Now, what is the Church of Religious Science? Well, it is one of those hippy-dippy, new age, new thought, metaphysical, God is everywhere, man. It wasn't intended to be an actual church, but it just kind of became one. But basically, how can I explain this? There are all things, all beings are part of what is known as infinite intelligence. They call it spirit, they call it Christ consciousness, or they call it God. And basically, God is everywhere, man. Like, he's not just in heaven or in, assigned deities or whatever. Like, God's power, we are God. God's power is within us. And we can align ourselves with God. I don't know. But like, basically, like, God is not like a person or like a singular entity, but it's just more like a universal presence, right? Like, God is more of like an energy than a person, which, I mean, like, I can maybe, sure. But, people and kind of how they teach it is that you can basically live a more fulfilling life if you do something called spiritual mind treatment, or what they also call like affirmative prayer. And it's basically like this step-by-step process where you state the desired outcome as if it has already happened. This is where I get off the train immediately. It's like basically saying like, I'm a millionaire. And then if you just repeat that, eventually you'll become a millionaire. And that's just not how things go. You have to do it. But they try to like say you got to partner with the infinite intelligence to achieve success or whatever. I don't know. The ultimate idea, though, is to gain clarity in your thinking that then guides the actions that are consistent with the desired outcome. But again, you could just do that. You don't have to constantly like have your daily affirmations to do that. You can just set a goal and then you just start working for it. You don't have to wake up every day and be like, I'm a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. What do I need to do today to become like it is? And look, and that's just how it works. For some, that may need to be how it works for some people whose brains operate that way. I just don't get it. All right. And that's where I get a little judgy. For what it's worth, they also believe in the law of cause and effect. Every action has a consequence, creative, destructive, or neutral. They take that from what Jesus said, you reap what you sow. So like there's some, connection to Christianity there. They also believe in the law of attraction, which kind of, I think, comes from Hinduism, really, believe it or not. They just don't ascribe to the reincarnation side of it. It's more just like a personal responsibility sort of thing. Like if you're a terrible person, then you attract terrible things to happen to you. It's saying things like that, right? It's all just a mindset sort of church sort of thing. Well, that's the world that Ruth Norman got into. And she specifically got into past life regression, this other aspect that they were kind of teaching at the time. I don't know if they still do or not, where you live a bunch of different past lives. Like, I was Queen Elizabeth in a past life and blah, blah, blah. I don't know. There's no science to that whatsoever. But in 1954, Ruth attended a psychic event and met Ernest Norman, who told her that in a past life, she had been the daughter of the Egyptian pharaoh that had protected Moses. Now, if you're not familiar with the Bible, there was a thing going on in Egypt where they were killing all the Jew babies, mostly the Jew boys. And there was a family, they put little baby Moses into a little basket, set him off down the Nile to save his life. And then Pharaoh's daughter, it was really Pharaoh's daughter that found the little Jew baby and decided to keep him and raise him as her own. But her dad was the Pharaoh, had to sign off on it. Well, basically, this guy, Ernest Norman, said that Ruth in a past life was the daughter of the Pharaoh who saved little baby Moses. And upon hearing this news, Ruth immediately divorced her third husband and then married Ernest the same day, which is great. Like, that tells me everything I need to know about Ruth right there. Like, just completely directionless, will listen to anyone who treats her nicely. And again, that's more of a reflection of how her father probably raised her. It's not great. But also, babe, come on. Don't marry a dude that you met that day. Especially a dude who's like, oh yeah, I really feel your energy, you know, in a past life. You've had many past lives, but the most interesting past life that you lived, you were actually the daughter of the Pharaoh. I don't know what your name was because we don't really mention it in the Bible, so we're just making it up, I guess. That you were the one who saved Moses. And Ruth is just like, well, hot dang. I guess I am pretty great. I'm going to go, hey, hubby number 3, I'm gone. I'm going to go marry Ernest now. So dumb. Ernest, to his credit, he wholeheartedly believed that he had the ability to communicate with aliens and dead historical figures. And so he and Ruth quickly formed an organization called Unarius in San Diego, California, where Ruth served as the typist, which she allegedly learned how to do while sleeping. And look, I don't know, look, it's typing. And look, this is 1954. So like, this is very new technology, right? Like we've been handwriting everything for, centuries at this point. Now we have typewriters and you have to learn how to push the letters and then do the, tack, 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 ting, ching, whatever that last bit is. I don't know, making a new line. Apparently that's a real difficult skill to learn, but Ruth mastered it in her sleep because of her divine energy. I don't know, man. Anyway, Ruth would then type out the messages that Ernest received from the aliens and ghosts that he was in communication with and turn them into books on psychic healing and how to travel around the solar system. So like, let's backtrack a little bit here and let's talk about Ernest for a second. All right. Ernest was born on November 11th, 1904 in Logan, Utah. By all accounts, was not actually a Mormon, I don't think. They're just, Norwegian and English immigrants as parents. But he, at age 7, he claimed that he was a child prodigy, or at least he later claimed that his prodigiousness, I guess, started at age 7 when he constructed his first microscope using parts from a telescope, right? And look, he was really good at math as a teenager. That is documented. That's fine. But then at age 17, he and his family moved to California. He got married in 1929, had a son. And around this time, he started experimenting with clairvoyance, palmistry, which I guess is like palm reading, and fortune telling. So like really, really, promising future, right? Really good at math. He's got a family, and then he gets into clairvoyance and fortune telling. So he's going off in the opposite direction. He initially worked for the Borderlands Sciences Research Association and was a contributing editor to the Round Robin Journal. But I don't know. I guess he was just still super into all of the spiritualism that he was super deep into. So 1954, they're at this wackadoodle convention in Los Angeles. He meets Ruth, and one of the clairvoyants at this convention comes up to them and says, look, guys, this is going to sound really ridiculous, and I'm definitely not making this up, but 3 white bearded men have been following Norman around, holding these massive books. And Ernest and Ruth later came to believe that these were the spirits of Elisha, Ezra, and Enoch carrying the books that Ernest was going to be writing in his lifetime, where, he would start dictating to Ruth, who learned how to be a typewriter in her sleep, and she's just click-clacking away, reciting all of these books or whatever. It is super-duper silly. So the first book was full of poetry and prose called the Elysium, which was published in 1956. And then the sequel, the Athenaeum, was published in 1964. He then went on this 12-week lecture series called Pathway to the Stars all around Los Angeles, where he went into great detail about how energy functions. It was not scientific at all. But he also explained like what he saw through his telescope in the celestial world out in outer space. Again, this is the 50s and 60s. We don't know a whole lot about outer space yet. He's making most of this up. He also talked about psychic protection and parapsychology. He claimed that the people of planet Earth were being guided and watched over by a large fraternal brotherhood called Unarius, which was formerly known as Shambhala, or the White Brotherhood on Earth, and that any being could make contact with these higher beings, sometimes also called the Space Brothers. Now, I want to go back because there was a problematic thing there. The Great White Brotherhood, we're getting all in, like, we're getting super deep into like spiritualism and all that. The Great White Brotherhood is basically a belief system that was like adjacent to the New Age movement, where basically there was this idea that there are perfected beings of great power who spread spiritual teaching through selected people on this earth. It's real stupid. That's all I can say. It's just real stupid. But basically everyone is capable of using psychic abilities. You just got to know how to channel them, bro. And that's what Ernest was trying to scam out of people. Eventually he compiled his lecture with other articles and printed a book called The Infinite Concept of Cosmic Creation. And this was kind of all of the source material that they used for their Unarius group. When they weren't, writing all of this nonsense and doing these other lectures, they were just going out and just kind of spreading their message to any delirious California hippie who would listen. They would talk about their spiritual visits to other planets and how Ernest had been given the formula to try to educate and heal humanity of all of its flaws. They claimed that they were Jesus and Mary of Bethany in past lives. Ruth also claimed that she was as many as 50 different people over a period of millions of years, including an archangel and beings that lived on other planets. Sure. They used the stories of their past lives that they were definitely making up to develop Unarius's mythology and teachings, which often kind of paralleled the plots of modern books and movies. It didn't matter because the couple preached that higher beings somewhere out there were going to transform the earth and that followers of Unarius would achieve a new level of existence, which would allow them to travel through space. Additionally, they told people that the Chinese were the evolutionary form of ancient interstellar immigrants that had previously attempted to colonize Mars, which that's like random. And maybe it's racist. I don't know. But they're basically saying like the Chinese people are aliens. They're just alien immigrants who had initially tried to colonize Mars, but they couldn't. So they just came to America and now they're China. It's like, and I wish it was just as simple as like these two were a couple of con men who were just sitting around like, what's the most ridiculous thing that we can say that these people will believe? And they just keep getting more and more ridiculous to push the boundary and people just keep buying. But I genuinely think that these two people wholly believed that they were, formerly aliens on another planet in a past life and that they could truly talk to ghosts and other spiritual beings out there. Like they're just so stupidly insane people. And what's crazy is that like everyone out there in California was just like, yeah, this makes total sense. Like, we're gonna, just totally believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for our sins, but these people are crazy too. No. Okay. Like, I think we're going to be very open-minded. We're going to just be accepting of everybody. All right. Jesus, the story of Jesus isn't that much crazier.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Hey, it's Alex Caggiatani
and Paul Richmond
from the Education News Comedy Quiz podcast called Some of the Above.
Each month, Alex and I invite you to play along with two special guest contestants from the world of education as we ask questions about the latest school news.
If you want to laugh while you learn and learn while you laugh, this is the show for you.
So listen to the Education News Comedy Quiz now, because truly, this podcast will change your life.
You'll sleep better, your food will taste better, and you'll probably get promoted at work.
Than what the Normans are talking about. So I don't know. Maybe they're onto something. I sure would love to feel better about my life right now. It's the 60s. Things are crazy right now. Have you seen all the nuclear weapons that are getting tested and all of this rapid technological advancement? It's a scary time to be alive. I hope that this dude can talk to aliens and tell me about my past lives, because this current one's not great. Anyway, Ernest Norman died in 1971, and that should have been the end of this group, and it shouldn't even really be a story. But no, Ruth took over. And the following year, Ruth began publishing Tesla Speaks, a series of messages that Ruth claimed to have been given by Nikola Tesla from his new home in outer space somewhere. She also claimed that Albert Einstein and Louis Pasteur provided some additional messages, additional context. Hey, here's what's going on out in space this week. So stupid. In 1973, Ruth spiritually married the Archangel Michael at an allegedly lavish temple on another planet, and was subsequently crowned the Queen of the Archangels. So basically Ruth shows up to a Unarius meeting. She's like, hey, everybody, I've got some great news. Last night, I was spiritually, transported to the planet, and there, the temple is, just so lavish. It's like marble, but it's not marble because marble exists on Earth. It doesn't exist on this planet, but it's like marble and gold combined. It's like gold marble. And I went to this planet, and I was spiritually married to the Archangel Michael. It was a very beautiful ceremony. And then after the ceremony, would you believe it? Jesus came in and crowned me Queen of the Archangels. So that's what I've got going on for me. Also, I have a new earthly name. The Archangel Raphael showed up, and he named me, changed my name to Uriel now. So I'm no longer Ruth. I am Uriel. And what I'm going to do right now, my second in command, Charles Spiegel, if you could come up, and that was his real name. I'm not making that part up. I'm not making this story up either. This is exactly what she said happened. She then brought Charles Spiegel up, her right-hand man, her number two in command, and then reenacted this spiritual wedding ceremony that never happened. And everyone totally believed it. Everyone was like, oh man, that's crazy. I wish I could have gone to the planet. But I couldn't. So I'm glad that Ruth / Uriel was here to tell me all about it. This allowed Ruth to, because she was now the Queen of the Archangels, she had, extra psychic powers or whatever. She was able to increase the number of messages that she was channeling, and then started talking to people like Plato and John F. Kennedy. Because, sure. The following year, Ruth announced that a space fleet from the Intergalactic Confederation was going to land on Earth later that year. By November, Ruth, with heavy monetary assistance from her students / cult followers, purchased a 67-acre property outside of San Diego that would serve as the landing spot for the aliens, aka the Space Brothers. What is up with San Diego? Because this is where the Heaven's Gate people, also with the Space Brothers ideas and coming to save them on a Comet rocket ship. But whatever. The Unarius people were the OGs. As 1974 drew to a close and no aliens had arrived, Ruth revised the date to September of 1975, at which point the Space Brothers would restore the lost teachings of Atlantis to Earth, which would free humanity from crime and disease. So thank God we've got the Space Brothers coming in to solve the mystery of Atlantis. That knowledge, once it was unlocked, would be given by as many as 1,000 alien scientists using special crystal computers. Sure. Ruth, who apparently really believed that this was all going to happen, bought a brand new wardrobe for the occasion and arranged for a large banner to be hung on the property welcoming the Space Brothers to Earth. She just goes out to a local print shop and just orders this really elaborate banner that says "Welcome Space Brothers." And I mean, here's the thing. It's California in the 70s now. Probably didn't think it was that weird. It's probably like, oh man, these people are doing a ton of drugs. That's pretty sweet. We're just going to write Welcome Space Brothers. Is that like a band or something? No, I think it's just like aliens that they think are actually going to come visit them. That's insane. Whatever, man. They paid us in cash twice the amount that we quoted them. So like, we might as well just do it. So at that point, she also reached out to the National Enquirer and told them everything that was going to be happening. So September of 1975 rolls around, and Ruth gives a farewell address to her followers and tells them that her new home would then be on the spaceship, the Space Brothers spaceship, once it arrived. A few days later, when the Space Brothers had not yet appeared, Ruth comes out and issues an apology and claims that she had simply been reliving the trauma from one of her past lives as Isis, a major Egyptian goddess, and that she had been assassinated just before the aliens were supposed to land back then, I guess the first time, or one of the other times around. I don't know. At this point, like, the followers started to realize, like, oh no, this woman's just insane. She has no idea what she's talking about. So people start to leave the cult. Ruth sells the property and opens a storefront location to hold the group's meetings, where she began claiming to have the ability to heal literally anything. Cancer? I got you covered. Heart disease? We'll clear that right out. No. She soon opened the Unarius Academy of Science, which taught absolutely zero actual science. And instead, Ruth made up her own style of past life therapy and taught her students how to recall details of their past lives. And here's how you can do that. Okay. You're listening right here. If you want to find out if you once lived a past life, here's how you can do it, right? Just close your eyes, or don't if you're driving, but when you get a chance, and just pretend that you are in Victorian England right now in the 1800s, and you're wearing like 8 layers of clothes, and it's very heavy. It doesn't breathe very well. You're very uncomfortable. And everyone's got a British accent, and they talking like this, and you're just there. And it's Tiny Tim for some reason with, and Charles Dickens and stuff. I don't know, man. That's basically what she was doing, though. You just, and that's just how, and people will just, they're coming out and be like, oh man, I can imagine it. This isn't my imagination. These are my actual memories from a past life. Wrong. It's memories you were making up. It is just called your imagination. Either way, in 1976, Ruth publicly wagered $4,000 with a British gambling firm that the Space Brothers would definitely land on Earth within a year. And that's how you know she's an insane person. This British company was like, you're full of crap, bet. And Ruth was like, yo dog, bet. And they placed a bet that the Space Brothers would come within a year. And despite a lot of well-deserved mockery from the media, this story actually attracted several new members of the group. They took the over on that and joined this cult, thinking like, oh man, if this woman's really putting down 4Gs because some of these aliens are showing up, maybe she's right. Maybe we should go and follow her and see what she's saying. Well, unsurprisingly, no aliens ever appeared. And that forced Ruth to change the date yet again, but this time all the way to 2001. And students defended this failed prophecy by saying that humanity just wasn't ready for the Space Brothers, and that the aliens wouldn't appear until enough people understood these prophecies as they were meant to be. And that, where this should have ended the cult, actually caused it to explode. By the 1980s, Unarius had 450 regular members who paid $5 to attend every class, which is refreshingly cheap for a cult. Don't get me wrong there. Like all the cults we've talked about so far, it's give me all of your money and possessions and go out and work and give me your entire paycheck. Ruth is over here just like, give me $5. And that's it. Like, she's just like, yeah, give me $5. I'll let you play with your imagination for a bit. And that was it. She published all of her teachings over roughly 80 different books, which is Crazy. Like, and this is why, like, I've written 30 books, and this is why I kind of say, like, I'm at that weird point in my book writing where it's like I'm either like at a Stephen King sort of not level, but like prolificness and library, or I'm like a cult leader. You know, the difference is just in how these books are received. And I'm unfortunately more on the side of cult leader in terms of like sales and acceptance. No one really cares about the books I've written, right? Well, whatever. It is what it is. These 80 books that Ruth wrote were considered scripture by the students at the Unarius Academy. And Ruth even had a golden throne decorated with peacock feathers installed at the academy where she could sit and read from her books. Ruth's students, who somehow might have been crazier than she was, often fainted when they touched her. They painted several portraits of her and believed that those paintings had the power to heal. Many students who were diagnosed with cancer opted to trust Ruth to heal them rather than get actual medical treatment. And although Ruth was not demanding or overly strict like many cult leaders, she quickly would just excommunicate and banish anyone who disagreed with her. In 1988, Ruth fell and broke her hip. And seeing as she was 88 years old at this point, that fall was essentially the beginning of the end. You know how old people get when they fall and then they just keep falling and then they die. Well, despite brief periods of decent health, that was definitely due to her students performing intense past life regression therapy on her and themselves. Ruth announced in 1991 that the Space Brothers had given her permission to die before their arrival in 2001. So convenient. She then died 2 years later on July 12, 1993. In her will, Ruth promised to return to Earth in 8 years and be accompanied by the Space Brothers. Charles Spiegel then took over leadership of the group, but he died in 1999 before the prophesied alien arrival date of 2001. Although members of the group continued to pretend to channel messages from aliens and dead historical figures, including Ruth herself, the group eventually became more individualized and kind of just dispersed because 2001 came and went and the Space Brothers never showed up and never obviously happened. There we go. Ruth Norman and Unarius in the books. Let us quickly recap and see what we learned today.
What did we learn?
Number one, Ruth Norman, not a great person. Just right out of the gate. Probably incredibly stupid, incredibly gullible, and then just like, she liked playing pretend. You guys, that's pretty much all it is, right? Number two, meets Ernest Norman at a spiritualist convention. He convinces her that she was the Pharaoh's daughter who saved Moses, and then goes home that day and divorces her third husband, and then turns back around and marries Ernest the same day, which is crazy. Because here's the thing. I didn't mention this. Ernest was also married at that time. And so they basically just kind of left the convention, went home, said, I'm getting divorced from you, wife and husband. And then they went back to the convention and got married, or wherever they went, right? So stupid. And then number three, Unarius, the cult that they made together, believed that you could talk to aliens and dead people and get messages for whatever is going on in the spirit world. And a lot of people were just like, yeah, this makes perfect sense. Whatever. And like, even though she prophesied that the Space Brothers were coming in 2001, they obviously never did. And they still haven't, and they never will, because the Space Brothers aren't a real thing. So like, don't believe stupid stuff like that.
What did we learn?
Next week on Our Weird World, it is sadly the end of the summer of cults, and we are ending with probably one of the most famous cults. You've probably heard of them. You've heard of like the one big thing they did. They are the ones responsible for the sarin gas attacks in the Tokyo subway in the 90s. But we're going to look at Shoko Asahara and the Aum Shinrikyo cult in Japan and all of his crazy, scary stuff that he was trying to do. This one's not silly. This one's legit. So, one of the more famous cults to ever exist, and we're going to cover them next week to wrap up the summer of cults. And then we are into Serial Killer September. So thank you so much for continuing to listen. Keep telling all your friends and keep it weird.
This is a podcast.